Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. I chose a very bad time to decide to start recording, which is 3 p.m. so it's a bit dark. I'm using a ring light in the hopes that it's counteracting the darkness of the room right now. But today's video is going to be a wrap-up of all the books I read during September and October, which were two hectic months for me, so I ended up reading less than usual. But I also ended up reading some amazing books, so I don't mind that I read less than usual at all. The first book I started reading midway through August and finished at the beginning of September, and that was Black Beauty by Anna Sewell, which I read on my Kobo. I think the strongest case I can make for this book is that it actually got me to like horses, which is all you need to know that this is a wonderful work of fiction. But Black Beauty follows a horse. It's a fictional autobiography of a horse called Black Beauty and his time living with different owners, some of whom are good, some of whom are bad. And it was kind of intended as a way to convince people to care about horses and look after them and stop the abuse of horses. And I think Anna Sewell really succeeded in that respect. She paved the way for animal welfare. Things did change after the release of this book. So, you know, even just looking at it in that one aspect, it is an amazing piece of fiction. This book wasn't intended as a children's classic, but it's definitely gained that reputation now. But I don't think you should be put off by that. I think this is a great story for adults and children alike. There are so many quotes within this to do with standing up for the oppressed, which in this case is horses, but when you kind of remove the context of the story, they're quotes that stand by themselves as, you know, great questions of morality that give you a lot to reflect upon. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's one that I'm gonna reread. I gave it 4.5 stars. I recommend it. It's short. It's great. It's sweet. It's upsetting. It's great. The next book I picked up was a short work of nonfiction, and that was The Principles of Communism by Friedrich Engels. This is a great introductory work if you are interested in learning about the basics of communism. It's set out in a question and answer format, so it's very concise and simple. It's basically an FAQ. Yeah, it succeeded in what it set out to do. If you're interested in learning what communism was or was meant to be standing for, this is a great place to start, but it's not one that will be going into my favourite nonfiction reads of the year. Next, I read The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov, which has become one of my favourite books of all time. This follows various characters, although primarily the Master and Margarita, through their encounters with the devil and his sidekicks. Some chapters also take place during the time of Pontius Pilate and the crucifixion of Jesus, which I wasn't sold on at first, but by the end they really became my favourite chapters. And while this did take me quite a long time to get into, it was very slow in terms of my enjoyment with it. Once I did get into it, it was such a fun and rewarding story. And it's such an interesting rejection of Stalinism and the Soviet Union. Even though it was slow going for me, once I got past my skepticism, I was rewarded with so much literary gold. It's just so whimsical and so chaotic, and just, it's a brilliant, brilliant piece of fiction. Another thing I really loved about this is that while it gives you a lot to think about, it also gives you a lot to laugh at. My favourite character was Behemoth, which is this black cat you see on the front, which is probably a popular opinion. I feel like a lot of people probably really love Behemoth. He's definitely one of the most fun characters. I read the translation by Michael Glennie, which I've seen described as the best translation and also described as one lacking critical depth. So I really don't know what to make of it. I think in some places the writing was a bit stiff, but it wasn't enough to hamper my enjoyment of the story. So I guess your mileage may vary, and if you like to be particular about translations, I would maybe do some research on which one is considered the best. But yeah, this one was fine. I have no problems with it. In terms of the edition itself, it's very stiff physically. If you can see, I kind of completely cracked the spine in many places, and I still found it hard in places to like open out fully. It's behaving perfectly fine now I've got it on camera, but I found it quite uncomfortable in places to read. So if you're somebody that doesn't like cracking the spine of their books, I don't think this is one that you could comfortably read in this edition. So I would look for another one in that case. But yeah, this was a 5-star read for me. Love it. One of the best books I've ever read. So fun. Completely recommend. Brilliant, amazing, show-stopping. This has turned into the Lady Gaga meme, so I'm gonna stop there. So the last book I read in September was the autobiography of Malcolm X, which I put a lot of tabs in because this gave me a lot to reflect on in terms of religion, and also some of the passages were just really beautiful. But like The Master and Margarita, it also took me quite a while to get into because so much of it is infuriating and upsetting in the extreme. But what solidified this as my favourite, well, so far, my favourite non-fiction of the year is that the description of his pilgrimage to Mecca is just beautiful, and it's a real treat to be able to read and feel like you're also involved in that journey. It was just an amazing thing to read. If you are at all interested in religion, I think this is a must read. Yeah, a lot to reflect upon in terms of religion and being religious. But this was also a 5-star read, and I highly recommend it. The one and only book I finished in October was A Month in the Country by J.L. Carr. Though this is a very short book, I think it's one that works best if you take your time with it, which is what I did. It follows a traumatized soldier from World War I as he is hired to uncover this painting in a church in a small countryside village. Everything about this story is so beautiful, but it's also so painful, and there's a lot in here to do with the relationship between war, religion, and trauma, which is really interesting. What solidified the 5-star rating for me was the fact that this made me cry. I think it's the first book I've read this year that's made me cry, so of course I had to give it 5 stars. But it's just a beautifully written book. Like other books I've mentioned, this is one that I want to reread in the future because I feel like it has a lot of wisdom within it. Highly recommended. Someone that I follow on Instagram actually read this because I recommended it, and that made me so happy because it's a book that I feel like I don't see get talked about that often, but it really deserves more people reading it because it's amazingly written. The story is just so beautiful. Everything about this is amazing. Yeah, I can't hype it up enough. It's great. You should read it. It's only like 100 pages. It's great. So that's it for my September and October wrap up. Though I read less books than usual, 3 of those were some of the most rewarding books that I've read all year, so I'm really pleased with how those 2 months have gone in terms of reading. But thank you for watching, and feel free to tell me in the comments what books you finished last month and what you thought of them, and if you've read any of the books that I read in September and October as well. Bye!